Hello, amazing co-developers. Hope you're doing good. Today we are going to talk about grab interview iOS question. So the question is, can you implement your own custom optional? Before deep diving into the problem statement, first of all we need to understand what optionals are. As per the Apple documentation, an optional is a type that represents either a wrapped value or the absence of a value. In general or basic terms, an optional is a type which can either have a value or can be null. So let's go ahead and see how we can implement optionals. Well, I'm sure a lot of us already know that optionals are implemented as enums, whether it can have a value or it could be null. Well, this question is more or less similar to the one which I prepared a couple of months back. Can you create your own high order function map? Let's go ahead and see how we can implement optionals. So now let's see how optionals are implemented. So as we all know, optionals are implemented as enums. So for our requirement as well, we can go ahead and use optionals. So first, let's go and try to create enum my optional. Now, since optional work with almost all the data types, we need to be sure we use generics here. Otherwise, we will lose the potential to use all the data types in one implementation. So let's make it a generic and try to implement the cases. Let's say we have the first case as sum, which would have some value. This is an example of associated enums, and another one would be none. So our my optional would potentially have a value or can have the potential of having a null value as well. Let's go ahead and try to implement the initializers for this. So since it can have both the cases, a value or a nil as well, so let's implement two initializers. One default initializer with the value none, none, and another initializer if it has a value, we would probably try to implement with dot sum and value. So this is how our custom my optional implementation would look like. So if we want to use this my optional, let's take an example and try to use my optional with some sort of an integer value. Let's take an example, let my int of type my optional, and since this is generics, we want to specify the type integer, and let's try to assign some value, some 10. Let's see if we print this my int, what is the output. Okay, as you can see, the value is some 10 here. This is pretty awkward, right? We don't want some 10. We want simply the value 10. So in that case, what we can do is we can go ahead and try to implement one computed property. We can call it computed property as unwrapped. So the return type of this unwrapped computer property would be generic again. And let's try to put a switch on the self. Oh, if we see, we have got two cases again. If the value is sum, let value, we'll try to return the value itself, uh, return the value itself. And if the case is none, probably we would try to throw the fatal error like the original optional does, and we can call it like trying to unwrap a nil. Now if I want to look at the output for my int as unwrapped, we would see the value 10 here. Now we were talking about that it could have a nil value as well. Let's take an example of an integer which does not have any value. So let's try to create my integer 1 of type, again, integer, and we can have this as none. So what would happen if I try to print my int 1 here? Let's take it here, and then we want to print the unwrapped value here as well. If I run this, you would see the value for my into 1 is none. However, when I try to unwrap the value, it says trying to unwrap a nil. So it is similar to the exception we get for the real optionals which are implemented by Swift. Now, this is a perfect example of how we can implement our own optionals. But so far, we have just worked with one data type, which is integer. Let's try to find out whether it would work with string or not. Let's take one example for string to find out whether this works perfectly. And it's like my str. We need to pass the type str and say hello devs. If I try to print my str unwrapped. Oh, we probably need to get rid of this one. Yes. So it works perfectly fine with strings as well. Here you can see the value of the optional sum hello devs, and then we have the unwrapped value hello devs as well. Hope this video is beneficial for you. Do let me know if you have any concerns or questions in the comments. Have a good day, guys. Thank you.